Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fall. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Indeed it goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air, and that's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus. You know, people don't realize we lose 25,000, 30,000 people a year here. Who would ever think that, right?
I know. It's
pretty amazing. And then I say, well, is that the same thing? This is more deadly. This is 5 per, this is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%. So this is deadly stuff.
This is 5% versus less than 1% in the flu. And of course, when he was asked about the flu, about 30,000 people every year die of the flu in the United States of America. Here we are sitting, 7 months into a pandemic that we knew about with 190,000 dead people. And he had said that 100,000 would be terrible, but, it's a bad number, but maybe we'll get there. But this is amazing because it's February. This is February, and he freaking knew it was deadlier than the flu. He knew it was 5 times more deadly than the flu. He knew it was super freaking contagious, and he didn't do anything. He didn't order additional PPE. He didn't get a testing regime together. In fact, what he did was he dismantled the predict part of the government that actually sits on that wall and predicts things like that. That's how he knew, and he dismantled it. Took it apart. Why? He didn't want to tell the American people because he was afraid the stock market would tank. The second people understood there was a global pandemic that was really dangerous, really deadly, so instead of, telling anybody or doing anything meaningful at all, ordering, tests be created, getting the genome, getting PPE out, doing anything at all. He just decided to lie about it. Now, that was February 7th. Here we have a recording that was made 3 weeks later. This is March 19th. And on March 19th, the President of the United States knew that COVID actually affects young people too.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older.
Yeah, exactly.
Young people, to plenty of young people.
So
what's going on
give me a moment of talking to somebody, going through this with Fauci or somebody who kind of, it caused a pivot in your mind, because it's clear just from what's on the public record that you went through a pivot on this to, oh my God, the gravity is almost inexplicable and unexplainable.
Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you,
sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes,
because I don't want to create a panic
in the stock market. 19 conversations there are like this that we're going to be able to listen to. I have to tell you, in this book, what was released already as a preview, the synopsis or, a preview, some sort of early, indication of what's in the book quotes a lot of the top administration officials who have since left. Dan Coates, a dyed-in-the-wool conservative senator. Dan Coates, a dyed-in-the-wool conservative Republican who was our former director of national intelligence. He's quoted in this book calling Donald Trump under the spell of Putin. He said, in this book, he says, Coates continued to harbor the secret belief one that had grown rather than lessened, although unsupported by intelligence proof that Putin had something on Trump. Coates says, how else do you explain the president's behavior? Coates could see no other explanation. Well, last night, Michael Cohen showed up on Rachel Maddow's show. And last night, Michael Cohen explains a mystery that had been plaguing people, especially Rachel. Rachel was always into this story about this Palm Beach house. Now, I know this house, okay? This house has since disappeared. It's been razed to the ground. It's not even there anymore. But there was this architectural nightmare of a disgusting house. I mean, it was a big mansion, and it had fallen into, like, major disrepair. Trump had bought it years ago. And all of a sudden, a Russian oligarch in the fertilizer business buys the house sight unseen, never, ever walk through. And you're talking, it was a mansion on Palm Beach, so it was millions of dollars, like $20 million house. And he buys this house, sight unseen, never goes through the house, never tours the house, nothing, and overpays for it by another $50 million to Donald Trump, who owned it, and then just demolishes it. And there's a lot there now. There's nothing there. This was one of the first questions that Rachel had for Michael Cohen, like, what is the story on that house?
So you write that the president effectively sort of flipped a house in Palm Beach. You describe it as an architectural nightmare, which I found effective. But he made a profit on that in excess of $50 million. And what you write about in Chapter 12 is that the president told you that although the person who bought that house from him for this $50 million plus profit was a Russian fertilizer billionaire, the president told you that he believed the actual money was Putin's. Quote, the oligarchs are just fronts for Putin, Trump told me. He puts them into wealth to invest his money. That's all they're doing, investing Putin's money. And then you say, in your words, Trump was convinced the real buyer of that house was Vladimir Putin. Oh! Was he speaking seriously and literally there? Did he actually think that Putin had arranged this $50 million windfall for him?
Well, I don't know what he was thinking. I can only tell you, which I did in the book. I can recount the conversation. He believes that all of the Russian oligarchs are basically pawns of Vladimir Putin. He controls all of them, I guess very much to the same extent that Mohammed bin Salman had the ability within which to lock up all of his relatives and other members of the royal family for money, right? Trump is keen on this power. And whether it's Putin, Mohammed bin Salman, the Kim Jong-uns, the Maderos, it's the power that he's so involved with and so in search of, that this is exactly what he believes. He believes that Putin controls all of Russia and all of its wealth. And anything like the purchase of this home had to have been through or with the permission of Vladimir Putin.
Oh, my God. Now remember that during the campaign, Michael Cohen was trying to get a Trump Tower built in Moscow. And that couldn't be built without Putin. And everybody's flailing around going, what does Putin have on him? What does Putin have on him? I don't know what he has on him. Money. RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.